Good afternoon, viewers. Happy Children's Day and welcome to our gender-based violence content program that we do on Voicetv Nigeria. As usual, like I said, in celebration of our children today, I am with the two experts that began this gender-based violence program to educate and enlighten us on how to best protect our children and understand the rights they have in our country. I will start with the lady, Miss Felicia Funke Obafemi. You're welcome, ma'am, once again.
Thank you so much.
And the man of the moment, as usual, Mr. Lemi Ukegbe, who has never stopped but keep knocking doors to ensure that we protect our girls. I'm practically going to call you the same name they called the former CBN governor. What was that title they gave him? Is it the woman of the sea of the year or something? So you're welcome, sir. You're welcome to our studio.
Thank you.
Today they will be enlightening us on the rights of our children. I realize that I haven't begun the program with them, that a lot of things are before us, but we never knew what they were and how best to use them to protect our children. We've actually been ignoring a lot of things that would have helped best protect these children, the future of tomorrow, and keep a better society. Mom, Child Right Act. Please tell us, what are those? Do we have them, and how best to apply them?
All right, thank you very much. First, I want to say Happy Children's Day to all children outside in Africa, in Nigeria, and the world at large. Um, I'll first say what is right. Right is your moral or legal entitlement that one should have to do something or to have something. And so, for children in Nigeria and in Africa, yes, we have Child Right Acts that has been, aligned to guide and to protect children in this country. And I think it was adopted in 2003. And then, but fortunately, not all the states have domesticated, the Child Rights Act. And that alone, it's a concern for the implementation of this act, because it looks like it's tilted towards one side of the country. So even when you want to carry out this act, another law may be actually contradicting what you have in the Child Rights Act. So every child has an act that is protecting them, that is meant to help guide the society on how to nurture and to develop and to care for those children. So in Nigeria, yes, we have Child Right Act, and it has been, you know, domesticated in some states, but not all the states.
Sir, Child Right Act. What do we have them, and how just more like shedding more lights to what she said.
Okay. I adopt the submission so far of my colleague, uh, Funke. She has captured it rightly. The essence of the Child Rights Act, actually, as she said, is to ensure that we have legal instruments to protect the child. It stems from the United Nations Convention on the Right of the Child, which Nigeria had been signatory to long, long ago. Then in 2003, having ratified the Convention of the United Nations, um, Nigeria had to move the bill to the National Assembly. So fortunately, in the year 2003, the Nigeria domesticated the convention which they ratified, and that gave birth to the Child Rights Act. And just like Funke said rightly, about 10 states haven't domesticated these acts. Having passed through the National Assembly, what was expected was that states, the 36 states, would ordinarily have domesticated. Unfortunately, not all of them. And if you even try to do your personal research, go on Google to check, you would see that the information on even the number of states who have domesticated are not up to date. And it speaks to the fact that even governments and agencies working around the issues of children are actually not doing enough to put information out there. you would still find that there's the saying that there's this position that Katsina State is still listed among states who have not domesticated. But of course, we know that Katsina State in year 2020, I think that was even in January 2020, did domesticate the Child Rights Act. They called their own version Child Protection Act. Of course, I have bones to pick with that, but just so that information is clear
Mm.
that Katsina domesticated. However, my opinion, even the domestication of that by Katsina, is that and a few other states who have domesticated, particularly in the north too, some of them have actually domesticated it in a way that actually ridicules the essence of the Child Rights Act. Because one, by the Child Rights Act, which is in tandem with the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999, it's clear that everyone under the age of 18 is a child. That's what the Child Rights Act says. And we look at the intendment. Why did United Nations come with a convention to protect children? Why did the Nigeria ratify it? And why did Nigeria at the National Assembly level pass the Child Rights Act? It was because they discovered that children were getting a wrong bargain in the system. That children were not being well protected. Children were actually being exploited in various forms, both in terms of labor, cheap labor, and in terms of even sexual abuse. It also sought to protect children from even early marriages. But you find that for the few northern states who had domesticated the Child Rights Act, they actually still tampered with the provision that says a child is 18, because they eventually went ahead to actually state clearly that a child can still be taken into marital
Marriage.
relationship and be exploited sexually, which is in contradiction of the real intendment of the Child Rights Act.
With this premise, I got two things that are of concern to me. One, ma'am, you said some states are still slow to actually align with the intent of the National Assembly's passing of the act, and two, that there are some contradictions. They shed more light before, because with that we must know this, we must clear this part before we delve into what are these rights and we pick them one after the other. Why would some states kick against protecting their own children?
Okay, so I believe it's one thing for the federal government to, you know, accept or ratify the act. It's another thing for every state to, domesticate the right in their state. Now, for like if you rightly said, there are some laws that are not that are maybe I can call them like the penal code.
Are they cultural more? They feel
Yes, they
cultural
have,
protection
yes,
more than what should be
true.
in general for the
Which my
generality
my
of the
colleague
people.
was saying something before we started this program, that every other law should be under the Constitution of Nigeria. Every other law must obey the Constitution of Nigeria. So whatever laws you're being guided with, as far as the Federal Constitution of Nigeria law is concerned, every other law should submit to that law. That seems to be the higher authority. So, but it is seen that in those states, maybe due to religion, cultural belief, and what's it called now? The religion
The
aspects
tradition.
and tradition of the state. They've come to a place where they find it difficult to accept some of the acts, some of the laws that has been embedded in the Child Rights Act, especially when it comes to the issue of child marriage, early marriage, when it comes to the issue of the age. When do we call who is
Who
who
is a
is to be
minor?
called a child, or who is a minor, who is not? So some states still feel that if we say any girl between the ages of 0 to 18 is still a child, obviously you have contravened our own law that says any child from 14 years can be married out. So you can see the contradiction.
Disparity.
And so and they, some of them clothe it under this religion that says, I want to take my religion to be the higher authority for me than whatever the state is giving or than whatever the government is saying, which is another way impeding on the implementation of these acts in those states. So you cannot go to help any girl who you feel is being abused based on the fact that she's still a minor. You cannot even fight for her because the state has not domesticated or agreed that this act is what they are using to govern the activities of their children. So it's difficult for you to even fight for anybody in that kind of state. So now, if I'm in the south and I choose to say, because it has not been ratified in other states, I can go to the north to go and marry. Nobody will hold me. You understand? So it's actually bridging the effort of the government or every other persons to ensure that this act is being implemented. So I feel that we need to rise up to that task by ensuring that every other state comply to this, because I believe, like my colleague said, whatever the federal government or whatever the constitution of Nigeria agrees to be what they want to work with should be what every other state should agree to work with.
So you like most Nigerians will say, or some Nigerians will say, that we borrow from the United States. We know each of the states have their own laws, but I think they are mostly in tandem with what the ground norm is. Now, what I'm about to ask is, are we saying there's a disconnect while making acts and laws in Nigeria in the federal level by not taking into considerations this kind of contradictions that could come up? Because here it is, we're talking about our children, the future of tomorrow. If we are still having issues, because when we have all these disparate, we cannot protect them appropriately. What do we need to do? Do culture, tradition, religion, do they need to be considered before finally penning down these acts? Because here it is, it's a foundation. Once we don't get the foundation right, the house is already going to fall. What were the mistakes? And what do you think, based on your researches and having been expert on this field? Because the truth is, you see the pains. Probably sometimes people that pass these laws don't see these pains. They just get some documents and read through. Please shed more light. What were the mistakes and what can we do to correct them?
Okay. Thank you for that question. Let's say that education remains the most potent vaccine, the most potent tool to fight this. There's a lot of palpable ignorance, and that's the reason a lot is wrong with enforcement, implementation, or acceptance of some laws. Now, I'll tell you clearly that for the states who have not domesticated this Child Rights Act, for instance, three major reasons why they haven't. One, because it prohibits child marriage. Okay. Two, because it prohibits marriage to members of an adoptive family. Okay. The Child Rights Act ordinarily says if it's a girl you have adopted from whatever facility, you cannot get involved with her in terms of marrying
Marriage.
her. Okay. Then the other one is that it defines a child as anyone below the age of 18. Now, if you understand that, then we will need religion, tradition, and culture evolves. We are not static. A time there was when, in all parts of the country, when women would not at all be allowed to speak. They are to be seen, they are not to be heard. We're aware there was a time like that, and not just in Nigeria, across the world.
Mhm.
There was a time when, okay, how come it's a big deal that in the famous, exciting United States of America, it has only taken this time around for to get a woman as vice president, and it became a major issue. So it means that even their own society has had to evolve to meet up with the requirements of modern times. Um, Basically, these are traditional practices of those days, whether in the south, whether in the north. We used to have situations by tradition where children are betrothed, married off even from when they are born. They can even just betroth them and all. It used to be a practice. But of course, over time we evolved and lots of places have dropped those kind of practices. However, Regrettably, the North is holding tenaciously, and because we as a nation too have not come together to identify and unify our ideology. For instance, we have the penal code, which is part of what is an impediment to even the passage of the Child Rights Act outside in within the North, because the penal code says a child, okay, in fact, upgrades a 14-year-old to an adult, because it says you can marry a girl at 14 or even less than 14, so long as she has started seeing what signs of puberty.
Poverty.
This in itself contradicts what the Constitution, which is supreme. The Constitution says you are a child until 18, until you are 18. The Constitution says that you cannot give consent as a child. So that means if you are 17 years and 11 months,
11 months.
you cannot give consent. So you cannot be married off. But the penal code says otherwise. The criminal code itself says if the child, the girl, is 16, which is also what? An aberration, a contradiction of our constitution. So these are things that we really need to address so that we can genuinely upgrade it to 18. However, even as we have this kind of contradictions, one thing is sure, it is trite in law that any law at all, however good, well intentioned, however well drafted, however elegantly prepared, every provision of that law to the point of its inconsistency with the Constitution is what? Null and void ab initio. So that means that any provision, whether in the penal code, whether in the criminal code, whether in any other law that says anybody who is less than 18 can be married off is a nullity ab initio. Now, what is the strength of enforcement? So, because it ordinarily contradicts, and that's why we are in trouble as a people,
Yeah.
because we run away from tackling the real issues, the strong issues. Why will you tell me that the United Nations Convention on the Right of the Child seeks to protect the child? Nigeria says, wow, we love this convention. We now decide to ratify. Then we come home. The essence of coming home to domesticate a law from the UN, a convention from the UN, is so that you can domesticate it to suit your own constitution, not
Mm.
another law, your
Mm.
own peculiarity. And that's the reason the federal government, the National Assembly, felt safe enough to say 18 as adopted by the UN Convention and
Yes.
adopted by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is a safe place to go,
Mhm.
and they adopted it. Unfortunately, having done that, we still have those hard issues that we have not addressed as a nation. And until it is addressed, our children will continue to be endangered. Remember, the Child Rights Act says the child is entitled to dignity.
Yeah.
The child is entitled to a good life, is entitled to a well-being being taken care of. What's it called? Vesical vaginal fistula,
Mhm.
VVF,
Yes.
is rampant. And how do they contract it? When children whose body biologically has not been developed enough to go into sexual relationship to the point of getting pregnant and delivering, that is how they contract it. And that is part of why the UN woke up to this and Nigeria woke up to it. Now, it also says that child is entitled to education. We shouldn't see a child on the street hawking. We shouldn't see a child doing cheap labor. Ordinarily, if government and its agencies put their money where their mouth is, we should be seeing that parents who are even negligent about
Arrested.
Being
this
punished.
should also be arrested and punished for it. But we are not ready to really deal with the issues. We just jump into ratifying laws, into domesticating. But that genuine political will on the part of government and, of course, our people to act on it is not there.
Miss
True.
Felicia, he mentioned some things. He said, one, imagine
Excuse me.
three laws: criminally
Mm.
16 years, religiously 14 years, and the Nigerian Constitution 18 years on one side. Two, he mentioned again that political will has always been a problem. Ma'am, take us through the rights. Let us see if that can help us poke these holes and see how we can mend them. Walk us through the rights of the child in
Okay.
Nigeria.
The Child Rights Act itself has I think 230 pages, and then it has like different sections, 278 sections thereabout. But honestly, how many parents even have the rights? How many of them know that there's a right, a book called Child Rights Act or a
Hello.
document called Child Rights Act? How many? I was telling myself yesterday when I was reading through that maybe when people go to court to do this what's it called now? Court marriage and
Yeah.
everything. Part of the thing they should give them as souvenir should be the Child Rights
To
Act.
I think it
support
should be.
the marriage certificate.
Yes, because they need to know what they are entering into. They need to know what they need to start
Yeah.
preparing for
The
as
mind
parents.
towards.
Okay, so the first part, I think we have 24 parts in the Child Rights Act. And the first three parts for me is the most important part, let me use that word, that concerns parents, the children, and other institutions that are there to work for the child and the protection of the child. So, part one talks about the best interest of the child to be taken into consideration in everything. So, whatever situation you're talking about, the best interest of the child should be paramount. So, whatever the situation is, ensure that the child's interest is taken care of above all.
While you're discussing whatever issue that
What
concerns that child,
that child, the best interest of that child at that moment is what is should be considered as paramount. Now, the part two talks about what we have in the Nigerian institution, the Nigerian constitution about human rights, the fundamental human rights, which a child also, should have. For example, we talk about the right to survival.
the
Okay,
usual.
yes, the right to name, the right to identity, family life, private life of the child too. Okay, so you need to also look at the dignity, recreation. Every child should have cultural activity, should be given that freedom to understand the culture and the activities of our culture and all that concerns our education and the services to the nation. So all of this, how many parents have that information? Like it is important to train your child and send the child to school. In fact, from primary one to GS3, it should be basic compulsory education. Free. It should be free. Like very, very free.
But I don't think in Nigeria we practice that really.
How
No.
many persons want to take their children to the public school? Are the public school in a shape that you want to put your child in? Number one. Because if we get it right, maybe we will have plenty private schools functioning again because everyone will know that my child has that right to compulsory free education from primary one to
Mm-hmm.
JS3. Do you understand? So so many people don't even know this. They don't even know that it is compulsory. The government, I'm sure, maybe they are trying their best to ensure that they give or they provide that environment where children can go to school. But I think we still need to do more. We still see children roaming the streets, hawking. We still see children doing selling one or two things. Going into house helps and all of those things. There are laws guiding all of this. So I think that if we can even as parents or as child stakeholders pick that Child Rights Act and read for ourselves, it will help us to even know what to stand for. Like my Mr. Lemmy said, we need to come to a place where all of us will agree on what we want to stand. But when you don't even have the information, how do you want to agree on something? So even in the school curriculum, I still want to put it that the school should have it as part of its curricular activities, curriculum rather, that the Child Rights Act should be part of the
Handbook,
yes, even a subject. You can make it a subject that
a
every
standalone
child, yes,
subject.
every child must know. If I know my right, I can fight for myself. I can ask and demand for justice. But if I don't know what I have as right, I can be treated anyhow, and I will still say thank you.
Now here's this one. So, having said those two rights practically, I want to see what was the want to know basically to be enlightened. What was the problem if the first one states paramount, the interest of a child is the most important tool. while discussing a child. Why would you have those three contradictions? If people
Mhm.
who are learning supposedly are drafting documents to protect our children, not consider this, that we will be having a criminal age, a
Well,
religious age,
the
and I don't know.
it's just clearly a failure of government in building strong institutions.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one. Two, ignorance on the part of the lot of us. I talked about political will. If institutions are strengthened, institutions that should enforce the law, then we would not have the situations we have. I give you an example. When I say lack of political will, the lawmakers who should actually be in the forefront of some of these activities, including even members of the executive, are doing what? They are going to marry girls at 12, at 13, at 14. We know some who were governors who turned out to be senators who went and married. And I must tell you, until the lady exited at 17 and became 18, every May 27, I used to send to the man himself, Happy Children's Day to your wife.
You were doing that.
Why not? Happy Children's Day to your wife, because until she's 18, she was a child. But you know what they do? And that shows the lack of love on the part of most of these people.
Mm.
Having married that child at 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and put her in family way, and she contracts VVF, they dump that child and go picking another
Next, on
child.
to the next. Yeah.
Okay, so this is why there is trouble, and education is a major vaccine. Let's say it clearly, and I say it without any fear of contradiction. It is culture and tradition, not religion.
Mm.
All of those provisions of the penal codes are culture and tradition, not religion. The only difference is that we have failed to evolve in the North with its penal code. The South has evolved. Yes, you still have cases of people marrying under 18s.
Mm-hmm.
Even recently, it happened in the River State. It happens even in the South. But it is no longer the practice as it used to be. It's an anomaly. So people are not proud doing it.
Mm.
But in the North, they have failed to evolve. So it has remained a practice. Because again, ignorance is palpable, lack of education. They've made it seem like it is a religious provision, the penal code. It is far from it. And I urge all people who are guided by the penal code to do their researches, because I have had interventions with clerics, Islamic clerics, and all that, and they have made it abundantly clear through one of the major hadiths. A man who trains his daughters to the age of maturity before marrying them off has a special place in paradise. These are canons of the prophets. So let's educate ourselves. Let's ask informed people. Not all pastors know the word so well. Not all imams
Imams.
know the word so well.
True.
Sometimes you dig deep, pick the Quran, pick the Bible, dig deep. The Spirit will reveal to you what you would understand.
Miss Funke, you have started taking us through the rights, and we can never exhaust this.
Sure.
Now, what we would love to do is, um, can we ask our audience to do research and engage you in the next episode, because it is beginning to sound interesting. Because once we are able to understand these rights,
Mm-hmm.
and you being the experts, and I'm sure you have a lot of colleagues out there, you'll be able to walk to the National Assembly and say, look, we have a problem. Here is this. I would love my children to be protected. I don't want to endanger any other person's child, because every child is important to society.
True.
Because look, the thing is, you can't treat a child alone. Imagine you doing the best you can in your cocoon, and you have too many madmen on the streets.
Yeah.
And this child has to engage with people,
True.
interact with people. You practically have done nothing. And we feel today, being the Children's Day, we should be celebrating more winners,
True.
not people victimized, not people who are already traumatized and who are already going through bad experiences.
Mhm.
On this note, I will say thank you. And I'll say, please subscribe and join us in the next episode. And then click our like buttons and expect more from these two experts. I'm beginning to learn and to unlearn and relearn. I realize we've been actually been directed wrongly from what I'm hearing now. If criminally we're hearing 16 and then we're saying one is 14 and 18, the question is which age is the appropriate one that we should work with? And no matter
Constitution
what it
says
is,
18.
18.
and no matter what happens, we should all dance with, because we are protecting our future.
True.
The children are our future.
True.
We must not endanger them ourselves with our ignorance and selfishness. We say thank you very much. Sir, thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you.
And expect us the next episode. Miss Funke, thank you very much.
Thank you so
I
much.
think you've actually opened my head. I will. I'd never known anything about any right. We just keep talking about it on the surface, but now I am forced to go look for these rights to read. Happy Children's Day to our children.
Happy
Yeah,
Children's
Children's
Day.
And we
Day.
believe we'll get a better society.
True.
This is from Voicetv saying thank you and join us next time.
Thank you.